Hello, welcome to another fanfiction route. It's iDark777. As always, I'll be leaving a link to the story in the description. Please like, subscribe to the channel if you want to, and remember the fact that this is my opinion. If you have an opinion on yourself, please leave a comment. Remember, this is my opinion, my own thoughts of the story itself. So, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a show I really liked. And it's second to Kids Next Door. It starred a group of 3 girls, very colorful girls, being a monkey who like to talk weird. I'm talking about Powerpuff Girls. And I like to give a shout out to TV Trips because I actually found out about the story through their website on the Powerpuff Girls FanFiction recommendation. So there's a shout out to that website. And here we are. The story is called Misconceptions by Sandstorm 3D. It is a really, really big monster. You're probably going to look at the link and go, holy crap, there's a lot of words. That's over a million words. It's actually not as long as it says. It's around 820,000, give or take a couple thousand. And the rest of it's just literally gigantic author's notes. A lot. I mean, yeah, it's daunting, but you'll get through it. So, the plot. The plot is actually pretty damn good. It stars Mojo Jojo finally almost taking over. Yeah, I know, kind of cliche, but it's actually how he does it. He actually decides to put Antidote X in the Powerpuff Girls' drinking waters, knowing it'll be filtered, and so they'll slowly lose their powers out being turned suspicious, and then proceeds to get rid of the Rowdy Ruff Boys' powers to tie up loose ends. So the Powerpuff Girls come with their army into the ruins of Townsville, because Mojo actually made a new Townsville way over yonder to finally wipe out humanity, or at least get rid of the last armies of humanity that aren't under his control, and the Powerpuff Girls are doing one last shot. Their one last shot at taking down Mojo once and for all. And I love this plot. This is a slow burn plot. With the story this intricate, this layered. I don't want to get into too many details because most of my talk is going to be about the character development themselves. But this plot, how it's written, it needed, and I am thank God he delivered this immaculate slow burn story. This story needed to take its time. It didn't need to be rushed to. It didn't need a couple thousand, 10,000. It didn't need 100,000. It needed this length to qualify for the story that the author was trying to deliver. Everything about the plot, from Mojo's machinations to their raids to their growth as characters themselves and the development between the Powerpuff Girls and the Rowdy Ruff Boys, everything needed to be super long and super slow to quantify how much that needed to be done. Now, in terms of the plot, there's only really one thing I don't like. I'm not going to mention it because you'll find out it's kind of a minor plot point that plays into a sequel that the author just started. But I'm deliberately leaving it out because it's pretty much a letdown. Personally, I found it a letdown. But overall, it absolutely needed the length it qualified. If you don't like a very long story, okay, go, bye. But if you're able to get used to the fact it's insanely long, this is a masterful plot. I mean, it's bar none. Well, I haven't read a lot of Powerpuff Girls fanfiction. I've been staying towards my favorite cartoon, one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows, Kids Next Door. But this is the first Powerpuff Girls I read, and I was blown away by it, and I really, really loved it. There's parts of it I don't like, but I'll get to those in a little bit. But as for the plot itself, it needs to be plotted for what it did in terms of the plot. How it takes something of a simple concept of Mojo taking over the world and turn it into this slow burn, this absolutely masterful slow burn, patient story of leaving us wanting more. The timing of everything, the pacing. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry about that. Now, next, the character development. At the end of the story, the author actually flat admitted that he wanted to make a story that focused exclusively on character development. So he needed a type of story that would require long and immaculate character development. If you want the best part of the story, this is bar none the best part of the story. The characters are amazing. I'm trying to think of big words, but sometimes you have to use simple words too. The author wasn't lying when he said the character he wanted a story that focused exclusively on character development. And holy, the character development is amazing in the story. Everything from the how they act in the beginning, from the tension between the Powerpuff Girls and the Rowdyruff Boys, to the end with them finding kinship and everything in between, from Miss Keen to the kindergarten, to the children, to the soldiers, to Mojo himself, to how the Rowdyruff Boys and Powerpuff Girls interact with each other. It's immaculate, and the fact, and there was so much attention to detail and feelings that go inside their head. They make it seem like they're real people. They're really real people, and that's why I really love this story. It gave the time to give the accurate responses of how to act in a certain situation. It gave us tense moments. It gave us amazing characters. Um, it gave us a lot of callbacks to the show. Uh, I know I'm crisscrossing around a lot, but but I need to talk about the character development most of all. The character development exclusively is the absolute high mark of this story. It is that, and to quote Triple H, it is that damn good. And I can't, I would go on for like 10, 20 minutes just on the character development. So, we have Bubbles. Sorry, I almost said Bubblegum for some reason. Bubbles kind of learned to become confidence in herself to break out of her shell. We have I keep messing up the Boomer. There we go. Boomer trying to become, because he becomes this really introverted person who wants to be someone who wants to be patient with him. And the characters of the Rowdyruff Girls and the Powerpuff Girls, they mesh well together. This is very much their story. This is how they're gonna group of. So I got distracted. I get distracted a lot. And how they're dealing with the situation that they're both wanting to cope in many different ways. They have 6 different ways of coping, and how they interact and how they care for, and how they eventually come to like each other and respect each other. I want to stop now, because if I just start talking in detail about the characters, I'll be here for a while. I will flat out be here for a while. And I will leave it with this. Character development wise, 2 thumbs up. Immaculate, amazing. Really helps the story stand out from a lot of fan fictions. And just overall, the best overall part of the story. The author wanted to deliver on a story that did amazing character development, a story that centered around character development. The author did, in fact, deliver in that department. And that's really all I want to say, because I have to. Otherwise, it's going to be too much. Otherwise, you're just here about 10, 15 minutes of me doing nothing about how the character, talking except for how the characters develop throughout the story. Grammar. This is one of the 2 problems I had. There's a lot of grammar issues. Granted, it's been about a year since I read the story, so this one's more. The author might have went back and actually fixed a lot of the grammar issues. Basically, it started out fine grammar-wise, but then as it went farther down, you kept seeing like minor grammar issues, and then starting at like chapter 58, chapter 48 or chapter 58, there was a lot of grammar errors. It was like, on one paragraph, there'd be like 3 grammar, there like 3, 4, 5 grammar errors, and then it'd be clean for like a couple paragraphs, and then like a couple paragraphs later, boom, bunch of grammar errors. Holy crap! If you're a grammar Nazi, tread this one with caution. Pacing and imagery. The imagery is fine. Maybe I should switch imagery with wordplay. Pacing and prose. I'll get rid of imagery and make it pacing / prose now, like how or writing style, something like that. I'm still thinking. I need help, people. I need help. I'm only human. I'm not the Powerpuff Girls. I want to be Mojo Jojo. I would love to talk like Mojo Jojo. So I will take over the world. I will strike, colonize, and destroy. Until everything is mine. No eggs. Cusses. Sorry, I wanted to let out my inner Mojo. He was like the most hilarious villain ever. Until the Ice King showed up. I loved Mojo Jojo. He was hilarious. So pacing again. This falls back to the plot itself. You needed this immaculate, patient thought process to write the story like how it is right now. There is a minor problem with the writing style. Two minor problems. This is probably my second. Yeah, two problems with this part. I don't like the writing style. Don't get me wrong. The writing itself is good. It's just how it's written. The story is written in third person, and again, this is coming from someone who has trouble reading first person stories. This story needed to be first person. I have trouble again. Falling back to the beginning of when I started doing reviews. I reviewed a Five Nights at Freddy's story, and I said the story needed to be first person. I'm happy, and why I don't like first persons because I have trouble reading them. It takes me way longer than necessary to read them. But I can appreciate if a story needed to be first person. This is one of those cases. As much as I prefer third person over first and second person, this story needed to be a first person story. It warranted it, pretty much borderline warranted it. The writing is enough that you can probably that I read through it through a tolerable pace, but I kept thinking back that this story needs to be first person. This story needs to have the eyes and enemies and stuff like that. The whole 9 yards. And that's pretty much the only thing besides the grammar I would change. Make the whole story first person. Also, the story tended to drag on in parts that it didn't need to be slow burn. I mean, there was a lot of unneeded paragraphs in the story. Okay, I get that. Slow burn. Very character-driven story. But there were some parts where I looked over and I had to read again and said, that needs to be shortened. Like, there was a fight between Bubbles and, like, some guy, and it kept and instead of, like, actually showing the fight, it had Bubbles' thought process on how the weapon works through, like, how to fight. Saying, oh, I need to figure out how to block it and stuff like that. And it dragged that, and it unnecessarily brought the story to a screeching halt. There are parts where I can appreciate the slow burn, I can appreciate the pacing of it, but there are certain parts that needed to be sped up a little bit. Then so that way get rid of like a couple paragraphs, at least simplify certain parts. Not the entire story, but there are certain parts that do not require 5, 6, 7 paragraphs just to talk about one little thing that honestly only needed like one paragraph to do. But outside of that, I mean, I don't like the writing. Back to the writing style. It needs to be first person. I know I'm scattered. I know I'm talking scatterbrain, but I'm a really scattered person. I have a tendency to not really have trouble focus. I think if I remember, the doctor once said it was anxiety problems mixed with the depression makes me very, very scatterbrained. I don't remember because I have a photographic memory and I have trouble remembering anything that's not flat out pictures or imagery or stuff like that. Words, I have trouble saying. Pick items like here's a key. I know where they are because I remember putting them somewhere and I remember the picture and the items around it. Words, not so much. Thoughts, not so much. Numbers. There's a reason I suck at math. And finally, connection, genre, and emotional investment. Now we're getting somewhere. It is very easy. This is my kind of story. I really love these kinds of stories. The ones that really tick all the boxes of what makes a fan fiction really on par with a novel itself. This is one of those fan fictions that you can feasibly see as an actual novel. Granted, it's probably going to be split into 2 books because it's insanely long, but I can feasibly see these becoming full-length novels, something like Past and stuff like that. But again, that's My Little Pony saying, "Oh, we go above and beyond." But and it's a true adventure story. I would add a second genre. I would make it an adventure drama story because it does have a lot of drama elements. It has a lot of really emotional moments that while the adventure is bad, it's just it needs a separate it needs another genre tag, and I think drama would fit best. So, would I recommend it? And favorite part. Favorite part. There's actually a lot of parts that I really liked. The torture sequence. Mojo's speech at the end. Pretty much like half the I will run down like a whole bunch of stories, but I will have to give it to Blossom's speech in front of Brick. I think it's I can't remember what. I honestly can't remember what chapter it's from. Um, I would tell you, but I'm having that my scattered brain is like making it hard for me to read. I remember uh, Brick actually asked Blossom a question. Said, "Why are we doing this? Why are you still fighting?" And Blossom gives his very impassionate speech, and I felt all this pure emotion coming from Blossom. I know you emit the emotion onto the character himself, and that's pretty much what happened. It's a really emotional scene that kind of sets up not only the second half of the entire story, but starts the arc because parts of the story are dedicated to certain characters, like Boomer and Bubbles are their own arc, then Brick and Buttercup, and then Butch and Buttercup, and then Brick and Blossom. And this speech kind of starts off their arc, their character arc, and really, really made me smile because that's just first off, that's a damn fine speech, and second, that just made me want to read because at the time I was actually genuinely getting bored of the story. It's like I understand that it kept going, but I actually kept falling asleep. I said I want something to wake me up, and that's pretty much what I think is a bad story if I actually get tired and I fall asleep reading it, despite the fact I was fully awake. But this story woke me up. It kicked my ass in gear, and and made me want to power through the rest of the story to finish it. And I look back, and when I finished it, I looked back at it and said, "That's a damn fine story. That is an amazing story." So this part is not really not so much the fact it's a very good story because despite the fact it is a very good scene, but it kicked my ass in gear and wanted me to finish it. It encouraged me to want to finish the story, and that's because I just want to see more of it. It also didn't help a lot of the times I was in fact tired. There were a couple times near the end, and I just kept falling asleep. Because even I have to admit it was kind of dragging on a little too long, but it needed time to breathe, so I can't fault the author for doing that. Now, would I recommend it? This is a hard one because on the one hand it has amazing plot and it has amazing character development, but on the other one it does not have the right writing style. I still believe I don't unless the author is willing to convince me about why he made it in third person. I'm gonna stick to my guns and say this story needed to be first person. But I was actually debating most of the time with wanting to make this video was dedicated to whether or not I should recommend it or not because I kept going back and forth over should I recommend it or shouldn't I recommend it, and I decided to give it a very, very hesitant would recommend it. It's amazing story. it's just a lot of people I know are kind of put off by long stories. My friend, I'm not gonna go say it by his name. He likes reading, but he doesn't want to read this insanely long story. However, I think the plot, the characters, the pacing, the timing, the suspense, the drama, all those different elements far outweigh the writing style and the grammar issues and like the minor like dragging on at points. Despite the fact that dragging on points is again minor, but I'm more worried about the writing style. But I still think it's big enough that you can easily enjoy the story and fall in love with it. I can't wait to read the sequel because it's going to be like a big study on PTSD. He had to do a lot of research for a year on the study of PTSD before he could write the story, which I have to give him congrats doing that amount of research for a fan fiction to make it more realistic. So kudos to Sandstorm 3D on that. I can't wait to read the sequel when it's done. And it again, when it comes to the recommendation, all the pros, all the collective pros outweigh the cons. And while I really do not want to recommend it. I can't. It's not the writing style is just does not fit the story enough that I really want to wholeheartedly, full-fledged go and recommend it. I'm just hesitatingly recommending it because the pros are that good. Now, final thoughts. I actually did my final thoughts talking about the sequel to the story, and there's nothing more I really want to say. I really love the story, what the author did, what he wanted to accomplish. He nailed it in spades. I still can't wait for the second story. It's already out, but I want to wait until the story's done. And what the? Oh, moving truck. Sorry, I got distracted about that. I have no idea how to edit. Otherwise, I cut this whole thing. I cut that part out. I love the story. I just really wish the author could go back, fix the grammar, unless he's already did that part, and fix the writing style. That's legitimately the only complaint I have. Just fix the writing style, and that's pretty much it. This has been Dark. I'll see you next time. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and